Welcome to today's Ask Jeff YouTube question. As usual, it's not just one question, there's multiple questions. And today it comes from the book of Ezekiel. It says, is the temple described in Ezekiel a literal temple that will be built one day? Is this a future temple? What are the sacrifices performed in it? Now, when we talk about the temple, whether it be Ezekiel or any other passage of the Bible, there are multiple buildings we have to talk about, but only one location. What we know as the temple of God has only one location. It's that Temple Mount there in the center of Jerusalem. The first temple was desired by David, but it was built by Solomon approximately 1000 to 950 AD. It was destroyed when Babylon ransacked what we know as Judah and Jerusalem in 586 BC. It was reconstructed. Remember the days of Ezra and Nehemiah and Esther there in the 5th century BC. We call it the Second Temple or Herod's Temple because in the 2nd century BC, he actually funded the remodeling of the building. But that temple was the one that was there when Jesus Christ performed his earthly ministry. It was that temple that the veil tore from the top to the bottom. And it was that temple that was no longer after 70 AD when the Romans came into Jerusalem and dismissed not only the Jewish people, but the artifacts, the temple, the buildings, everything included. The Bible speaks, though, that there is a future temple that is coming. In Revelation chapter 11, in the midst of what we know as the Great Tribulation, that 7-year time period that Daniel chapter 9 prophesies, that Jesus Christ in Matthew 24 confirms that it will be there. There will be sacrifices that are made. It's that temple that, according to 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, the Antichrist goes in and defiles that abomination of desolation where he actually claims to be God. Those are the three temples that we know of, two past and one future. The question is, what about the temple in Ezekiel? It's found there in chapters 40, 41, and 42, and it's a very mysterious temple. Why? Is it the temple from Revelation chapter 11, the tribulation that's, quote, left over into the millennial time period where Jesus Christ is reigning? Does that, quote, third temple get destroyed and a fourth one is built? There's a lot of questions surrounding it and not a whole lot of concrete answers. But the question also alluded to the fact that that temple in Ezekiel, which, by the way, is that millennial time period, not the tribulation, has sacrifices as well. And it really begs the question, if that temple is there in Jerusalem, if Jesus is reigning on the throne, if Satan is bound in the bottomless pit, why would there be the need for sacrifices? It just appears that Jesus is there. There's no need because he is the ultimate sacrifice according to Hebrews chapter 10. That is true. However, there is one caveat to this question that we must address. When Jesus Christ returns physically at his second coming in Revelation chapter 19, then Matthew chapter 25 comes into play, where there's what we call the judgment of the nations. There are those on his right hand that go into an everlasting kingdom, that millennium, those on his left hand to the lake of fire with the devil and his angels, thus the bottomless pit. Those inhabitants of the millennium, according to Revelation chapter 1, are ruled or reigned over, not just by Jesus Christ, but by the body of Christ composed of those of us today who are believers in Jesus Christ. Those, quote, subjects are those that came through the tribulation, did not side with the Antichrist, and were there when Jesus returned on his, quote, right hand. They do not have a new body. They do not have what you and I have, the linen garments and the righteousness of the saints, the crowns upon their head. They're in a mortal state, and they're in a, quote, sinful state, and a sacrifice would still be necessary. The Bible speaks of at least three temples, the one that Solomon built, the one the Israelites built coming out of captivity, and the one that Revelation addresses in the future. The one in Ezekiel is either a fourth temple or it is the third temple remade. Sacrifices are made. Jesus is on the throne. We're reigning with him, but there are still those that would be subject and needful for a sacrifice. Again, thank you so much for your question. It oftentimes breeds more questions. Send them in to askjeff.net, and maybe yours will be tomorrow. Thanks for being a part of today's daily question. Now, we answer a question each and every day. Please feel free to submit a new question at askjeff.net. We may not have gotten to yours today, but we eventually will continue to be a part of this. Subscribe so you don't miss out on a question every day.